It's all too hard. That's not something I can do myself. How's it going to impact her life here and now?
I did it, Al did it, every one of my business partners have done of Rentvesting.
People don't recognise the importance of money working for you versus you working.
We had a business coach. I've got a background in endurance sports. I had a triathlon coach and I had a running coach. And the reason I employed those people was to learn from their mistakes. What I wanted to try and achieve in the property space was to partner with somebody with that exact same skill set or expertise.
So you wouldn't let a foot doctor operate on your eyes.
The rich have their money working for them.
Yep.
So that's what I was looking to do.
And it's outperforming your 3 clinics.
Pretty remarkable.
The actual holding costs don't tend to be, prohibitive. I had the money required to buy a house back in 2014. That's $2014, mate.
They're saving so hard that the property market is increasing at a rate which is faster than they can save.
I think we had to, come up with like an extra, I think it was 30 or 40 grand.
You have to help him out. He's not getting into the property market.
When's the best time to buy a property 10 years ago? When's the next best time tomorrow?
As soon as you can afford it, you dipshit.
Welcome everybody, very exciting episode today. We're here with Matt, who's sort of been on a journey from the foot doctoring Wilderland.
Al, thanks for having us here. But I was actually just going to continually call him a doctor until he corrected himself and told us what his actual profession
Well,
previously was.
he's a foot doctor, come good, moved to property investing. And Matt, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Bully.
Thanks, Al. Thanks, Cam.
Great to have you on. I think we've got some serious things to unpack today about going from the corporate world, your own business, into property investing and into your current role and what you're doing now. But to start out, I think there's a couple of things we always ask any guest on the podcast, and I want to hit you straight in between the eyes with it. And what was that light bulb moment in your investment journey? What was it, and how did it change your approach to life?
Well, I think it's actually what's ultimately led for me coming and joining the team here at OpenCorp. And it was essentially the fact that I was working really hard in my own business. So it was going really well. We'd kind of built it up to a point where we had 3 clinics around Melbourne. Certainly enjoyed my time in podiatry. But essentially, when I started to build a property portfolio on the side of that, using OpenCorp services, it was when the growth of that portfolio started to outpace my earned income year on year. That was my real aha moment. I'm like, I am working pretty bloody hard, long hours in a business that wasn't really seeing that return.
People don't recognise the importance of money working for you versus you working. And that's absolutely a light bulb moment. I think lots and lots of people who wants to get into property would resonate with. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I had it early on when I was doing Excel projections on what things would be like in the future in my 20s.
Hasn't landed yet.
Yeah, it hasn't landed yet, but it was those future projections where I think we were projecting out and going, if this compounds at this current rate, by the time I'm 33, it'd be worth $18 billion. The compounding didn't quite work out about that.
Yeah, maths was wrong.
My Excel might have been out, but I get it. When you're looking at running the hours that you would have been running as a business owner, controlling 3 different clinics across Melbourne, and then comparing that to your property portfolio, which is somewhat set and forget.
Yep.
And it's outperforming your 3 clinics. I get why it's a light bulb moment. So that's a really good one.
And just on that, was it being the butt of some of Cam's jokes? Like he's often said for years, you don't go to a foot doctor to fix your eyes. Did you go, I'm in the wrong game?
When I came on board, I told him, you finally got your foot doctor to have a crack at eye surgery.
The concept of what Matt's talking about is in my 4-year-old, the property investor, I align a similarity to accountants, and there's different types of accountants. You wouldn't let, and there's business accountants, there's property investment accountants, there's PAYG accountants, and you wouldn't let a foot doctor operate on your eyes. So Matt, when he joined us, he went, I'm a foot doctor. I'm ready to nail your eyes now. So
I'm here.
All right, now, question number 2 for any first guest we get on is, I want you to give me one myth about the property industry, the property market, that you feel is common but needs to be debunked, and why it was something that you felt that needed to be overcome.
I think the biggest one for me was the fact that property investing is expensive. I think a lot of people view it as it's more of rich people do, as opposed to being achievable to the average person. So I think provided you can take the time to put a deposit together, or you have some available equity in your home, the actual holding costs don't tend to be prohibitive for most people.
Yeah, cool.
Pretty remarkable, that bit, isn't it? Like, and we talked light bulb a second ago, but that's the second light bulb. I mean, it's a myth, but it's a light bulb to go, hang on a minute, like my life can go on. I can go on holidays, I can go for dinner.
Yeah.
I'm not running two mortgages because you've got someone else helping you to pay.
Yeah, and that was really important for my wife as well, Christy's. Like, she was fully on board with the journey, understood, all of the long-term forecasting and so forth. But essentially what mattered to her most is how's it going to impact her life here and now. Understood the long-term benefits, but didn't want to be, living off tuna and rice for...
Yeah, and we say a lot, life is for living, and people probably hear it from the outside and go, yeah, whatever, but that's reality. Like, buy an investment property, you want to go on living, you don't want to be wed to that investment property.
Yeah, definitely.
So with your journey, I want to separate things from your... Now you're working at OpenCorp, you're a property strategist, you're dealing with clients, bringing them onto that journey, and you can do that well because obviously you come from a practical background where you help people, which is what we always look for. You've got experience in property investing, but I want to separate your OpenCorp time to your pre-OpenCorp time.
Yep.
And that's really what I want to unpack today, your investment journey. Yourself and Christy, go back to when you first met or some early circumstances when property concept investing became apparent to you, and when you sort of had that realization that you wanted to invest. You got Harry now.
Yep.
How old's Harry now?
9 months.
I've got 4 kids, mate. I know what you got ahead of you. But that's all right. No, you and Christy do it well. But talk us through early days. So what was it that got you the first concept of investing, and what was that journey like to bring yourself to the point where you started investing?
Yeah, look, I think going back to when we first met, so Christy and I went to the same high school, but not at the same time. So my brother was actually in kind of Christy's year. She joined the high school a little bit later, and we were kind of introed through them. So
you're a creepy
sugar
old guy.
daddy.
not it makes it sound a lot worse than what it is. It makes it sound like there's like a 10-year age gap. It's a 1-year age gap.
Christy got brought to school in a pram. Sorry, so that's so bad. Okay. What's the age gap?
The age gap is 12 months.
Oh, that's sick. You're sick.
Oh, maybe a little bit over that, but no, it's about 18 months.
All right, so you met Christy.
Yeah, and I think for us, like, we moved out together when we were pretty young, so it was kind of, I think I was 23 at the time, and I just remember, family influence kind of going, rent money is dead money. You shouldn't do this. You should be at home, kind of saving for your first home.
Do you know who came up with that saying, "Rent money is dead money"?
I don't.
Don't you? Cam talks about it a lot.
Yeah, like I love unpacking sayings and what the drive, because emotional sayings like that drive people's behaviour en masse. So rent money is dead money was a marketing campaign brought out by builders. Rent money is dead money, so build a home with us and we'll get you your own home. A great marketing campaign. It's stuck, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's a good one.
So you went and put some dead money into the market?
Yeah.
So it's putting the dead money into the market. But look, for us, we then wanted to move closer to work. So Christy worked in town. My podiatry clinics were kind of, inner Melbourne, Port Melbourne, Elsternwick, Williamstown. So we made that shift into inner Bayside. And I think for us, I guess the good thing was that I realised pretty quickly that the median house price in the suburb that I was living was going to be cost prohibitive for us to be able to buy the dream home.
Yeah.
So the concept of rentvesting and, looking at an alternative pathway was almost indirectly forced upon us because we weren't in a position to buy at that point in time.
I reckon that's a really good, and sorry to break the, but I really need to unpack some of these things that you're saying just for people who are listening. So rentvesting, it's a really good concept. I know I did it, Al did it, every one of my business partners have done of rentvesting. So talk us through what rentvesting is.
Well, I guess perfect example is to kind of share where we're living at the moment. So we're in a really nice place in a Bayside, and what we pay in rent versus what we would pay in the, to cover the mortgage of that property, it's about 2.5 times more per week that we'd be required to pay to hold the mortgage on that property. So coming back to that concept of rent money is dead money, I guess it depends on what you're doing with that residual difference between what you're paying in rent versus what the mortgage would otherwise cost.
Great way to put it.
Yeah, and I think for us, it made sense to look, as long as we're being smart with that money and still using it for the purpose of investment. Al, to your point earlier, it's a bit of a rich dad, poor dad reference, like the rich have their money working for them.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's what I was looking to do in terms of investing in potentially locations that I wouldn't choose to live myself, but then that allowed us to be, in Melbourne, close to work.
So you could buy, I don't know the figures, but you were able to buy multiple properties in outer suburbs which had a better rental yield, which covered the costs of those, and just chip in the small amount extra to hold those properties instead of holding potentially your home in the area you wanted to live
But
in.
there's probably another episode to talk about this in more detail. But if you look at the stats, you're going to get about a 1 to 1.5% rental yield on an investment property in the areas you're talking about, which for those not in Melbourne, it's a sort of affluent area, Bayside Melbourne, really sought after area, absolutely. But if you're buying well sought after investment properties, you're probably talking 4 to 5% yields, and it's an enormous difference buying the right property.
Yep.
Is what we're talking about, rentvesting.
Yeah, 100%. I think we've even achieved higher than that in terms of the rental yields on some of the properties that we've purchased.
So you and Christy were rent vesting at this point in time, or you liked the concept of rent vesting, but your business was firing up at the same point in time. Talk me through that conundrum, because I know I've been through obviously multiple businesses, telco, IT. We've had this business, OpenCorp, operating for 19 years now, so I know the concept of business and what it takes to start business and the sacrifices you make financially and for time. So talk us through that juggle of what you guys were going through.
Yeah, look, it was actually back in 2013, 2014. I'd actually saved a deposit for a home, and it was a decision at that point in time whether I go into business or whether I go into property. And that's actually when I first reached out to OpenCorp. So that was my first ever contact with the company. I think it was 14. I think it was 14 when I first made contact.
Was it a My 4-Year-Old book, or was it?
My 4-year-old wouldn't have been out by then, would it?
2010 I wrote it, released 2012 I think.
So, okay, so maybe it was.
So that's all right.
So, because what I ended up doing is
If you don't like the book, just no.
Haven't read it. No. No.
It's a very good book.
And I've actually told Cam this before, is that book was, I've always had the mindset and the motivation, but I didn't really have like a strategy as to how to I guess deploy that. Yep. So that book certainly pointed me in the right direction. But I had that decision to make whether I go into business or into property. Reached out to understand what would be involved in property. Because I was really passionate about podiatry at the time, I decided to go down that path.
How old were you at that point in time?
Would have been, so what are we talking? It was 24, I think I was at that point. So I was pretty young
ambitious,
and just
awesome.
Ready to kind of cut my teeth. And
so you've done a fair bit of study. Sorry to jump in. Fair bit of study though to go podiatry's my path forward in life.
Yeah, and I loved it, to be honest. Like I did really well at uni. Graduated with kind of first class honours. So like really loved my time in it. But I guess the way our clinic was set up, it was more sports focused. So we dealt with a lot of athletes and injury kind of management.
You're a triathlete yourself.
Yeah, I love my sport. So, still kind of less triathlon now, with a little bit more running. But
how did that go last week, mate, when you decided to knock out the Melbourne Marathon with a day's training?
It wasn't my smartest decision. Look, we got it done. The time wasn't anything to write home about.
Was it 3:14 or something?
3:16, but
that's not good.
Little bit outside my PB, but
it's solid, mate.
I did have
give the reason. He's targeting 2:10, but he was pacing someone, so slowed him down.
Yeah, no, well, pacing someone, but I ended up needing the help. In the last 3Ks, I was rolling into the crowd to get people to stretch out my hammies because I hadn't done the training required. But
mate, I'm 50 years old. Just the concept of that is amazing. So well done, good effort.
But yeah, coming back to that business side of things, like I actually read the book because I'd made that decision to go into business. I had essentially 6 years it took for me to save up enough to get back the deposit that I otherwise had 6 years earlier. Right. So in that time, it was just read the book, do as much, I guess, investment research as I could. And I think what aligned with me most from my 4-year-old was the concept of sharks. And, because I went to property seminars where it was, not a word of a lie, like hands in the air, pump up music, keep your hand in the air if you want to change your life, all this kind of stuff. You know, for as little as $5,000, if you're happy to act today, keep your hand in the air. And I took my younger brother to this one. He didn't have a cent to his name at the time, and we kind of just looked at each other and we just like really sheepishly just lowered our heads down and just walked off towards
I'm
the
not
door.
joking. Cam and I did the circuit like you did, like
Yep.
saw all of them. And we used to joke, like at lunchtime, they go, it's lunchtime, people are going to queue up at a desk to pay money. We're like,
Well, I reckon there's plants in the crowd that there's probably like 10 people in the crowd that they plan to run up to the desk to sign up. To looks like a herd massing towards the sign up desk. So if you understand marketing, and people should understand this, so there's cycles in marketing. So there's different cycles where it's about self and it's about public. So self is about like the hippie eras, the 70s. The 80s is about, you know, greed is good, Wall Street, and, you know, fucking let's make as much money as we can. So Al and I, and Australia follows about 10 years behind the States. So we started learning about property in the early 90s, and which came off the back of the greed is good sort of thing. So the seminars coming out here were, you know, showing Ferraris and like, just make cash. So they were horrendously bad seminars that we were going to.
there's guys literally lounged in a bonnet of a car.
Yeah, which is disgraceful when you think about it, because you know, the concept of get rich quick equals lose money fast.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I know the seminars you're talking about. Anyway, mate, so you and your brother, you're at the seminar.
Yeah, well, that's, I guess, what attracted me again to the book and OpenCorp at the time, you know, from a client perspective, was that it was laid out really simple, but it was also in a really non-salesy way. There was no pressure from that initial phone call that I had back in 2014. I didn't feel like there was, you know, a deal to be closed on the back end of it or anything like that. So it was all just information. It was given freely. And that obviously then prompted my own research till I got to a point in 2020 where, you know, we had that deposit. And that's when I reached back out to OpenCorp. And it was pretty funny because I had the money required to buy a house back in 2014. So I was turned up really like keen and eager, and I was like, guys, I've got the deposit and I'm ready to go. And they were like, yeah, that's $2014, mate. Like, we need a little bit more more than that now.
The world's moved on.
Yeah.
We're waiting for you, Matt.
So your deposit needed to be double.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I think we had to come up with like an extra, I think it was 30 or 40 grand, I think, to make that work.
It's a really good point, and we talk to people regularly, and you'd be doing it now in your job, about as soon as you get in the property market, get in the property market because it gets harder. Do you know off the top of your head what 2014 prices and 2019 prices look like?
Look, I don't know whether I'm going to be quoting right numbers here, but I had a feeling in 2014 it was around 60 or 70 that would have got you into the.
What was the price though?
What was the property price?
Don't know.
No, I wouldn't know. It'd be probably sub 400, I reckon. About
450. 450 would be a nice 4-bedroom.
Yeah, probably talking 600s by then, and it's 800, 900.
Yeah, and that's the sad thing about the property market, and tough for young people. Like you were 24 to get to that point where you had a deposit on a property. Like, mate, you've done extraordinarily well back then, and I understand you've worked hard to get your profession, and going into the business, I would have probably done the same thing. Do you know what I mean? But the concept for people nowadays is they're saving so hard, but the property market is increasing at a rate which is faster than they can save to get that deposit together. So I feel, and it's getting harder. Like I've got kids, and I can't imagine what it's like, you know, for your concept of thinking about Harry. And, you know,
Harry's never buying a house.
Well, Harry, you're helping Harry out. There's no if buts maybes. Harry's not saving for a deposit.
Yeah,
you have to help him out, or he's not getting into the property market.
He'll have good feet as well.
Fantastic feet. Yeah, great instep.
But I mean, the old saying is, when's the best time to buy a property? 10 years ago. When's the next best time? Tomorrow.
Yeah.
And clearly your 2014 to 19 story summarises that pretty well.
Do you know who told me that saying?
I don't.
Yeah, old Steve.
Little Stevie.
Yeah, little Stevie told me. I said, when's the best time to buy property, Steve? And he said, as soon as you can afford it, you dipshit.
The dipshit bit was right.
Yeah.
Both bits are right.
Yeah. Sorry. No, it was good to have someone to mentor us early days. But yeah.
So you came back with your deposit, 2019, ready to go, and they said, come on, mate, go and get a bit more.
Yeah. So, and I guess like what worked in my favour at that point in time is like, that's when essentially what we're looking at doing was 2020, and that's when COVID hit. So essentially we're all locked at home for savings plans. Fortunately, the way we had the business set up. We benefited from all the government support. We were able to look after our employees once they were taken care of. It was like, all right, what can I do with, the leftover money? How can I be smart with it?
Yeah.
And I remember sitting down with Boz, so he came around to our
This is
our
Michael
place.
Barris, for the exec director of investment services at OpenCorp.
Yep.
You got a little quick sidebar about his feet this week? Before we come.
Yeah, he's had a bit of an issue with his feet now.
He did injure himself from doing his laces too tight.
You sold your business, but you haven't lost the skills, and this week you were asked to consult at your desk.
So I saw
And
Boz,
what happened?
I saw Boz. Well, he crawled out of the lift. He dragged his feet. It was sort of like Forrest Gump, and he's dragging his feet across, and he's like sort of wincing.
I think he was looking for an amputation, but he went for an assessment.
Yeah, and he said, "When's Bully coming in? When's Bully coming in?"
And what happened when he did the
talk me
assessment?
through the
Mate,
assessment.
he couldn't get out of his chair. All I saw was this hand waving from a cubicle. I was like, is he waving at me? I had no idea. So yeah,
Did he call you from 4 desks to 8?
but yeah, had to go over and take a look at his foot. So yeah,
what was
What was your professional assessment of his feet?
And you've owned 3 practices, been through
Three
uni,
practices.
10 years, 10 plus years in the game. What was your
Yeah,
assessment?
there's no better.
What was happening?
Multiple triathlons. What was your professional assessment of his feet?
they were ordinary. No. He
What did he do?
he tweaked a tendon on the top of his foot.
Oh, did he?
What's the non-technical
How
assessment?
did you do that?
The non-technical assessment is you can potentially hurt it by doing your laces a little bit too tight.
So he's crawled from the lift. He's waved a flag from his desk because his laces were too tight.
That's your summary, not mine.
I can't wait to Chris Kringle at this year's Christmas party, and he's getting Velcro shoes.
I think, and that's the beauty about that's what the joy you get out of going for 10 years at uni and running those practices, that you can help people.
You can hang shit on colleagues by doing that. Getting back to your story.
No, but seriously, mate, you've obviously helped some serious people, professional athletes over the time. How have you transitioned, and what's that feeling being like to going from learning about investing in the basics? Like, what were the things you learned that you can now transition into helping other people about?
Well, if I relate it to podiatry specifically, like the one thing I was a little bit concerned of giving up was the ability to help people.
Yeah.
I now feel like I can do that tenfold, because you're not just helping somebody, but you're helping their family and then future generations. So, like, that's been really powerful for me. And I guess the way I've explained it is, when somebody comes and sees you in a podiatry clinic, they essentially want to know 3 things. So, what's wrong?
Yep.
Can we fix them? What's the pathway to get there?
Yep.
And I guess what my role is now as a strategist is fairly similar. So what are the struggles that people are having? What are the financial goals? And how can we use property as a vehicle to essentially try and get them there? So, I still get to scratch that itch, I guess, but just probably applying it with a few zeros on the end of the invoice.
Right. So I want to just bridge your gap. So you started investing 2020. Talk me through the properties that the team organised for you, how they performed, and how that transitioned into you going, this is a serious move you've made. This is not a light thing to sell out of your businesses and go, I want to now help people in the property space.
Yep.
Just add to that. We're not talking an enormous amount of time. Like 2014, you had a decision to make. Own your own business or property. Business made sense. Done uni, why not? Built it up, 3 practices, bought a place. First investment, 2019.
Yep.
So we're talking 5 years now.
Yep.
It's a big transformation, and I think a lot of people out there listening would be saying, oh, if you invest in property, it's a long journey and it's decades.
Yeah.
But you've made some life-changing leaps and bounds in a matter of 5 years.
That's why I think this story is really unique.
Yep. Yeah, look, and I guess the first property that we were recommended through OpenCorp was in a suburb called Pollara, which is just south of Brisbane. Yeah, so for us, we were able to get in. I'm happy to share price points. We got in at a 600K price point. We had a valuation for that done a couple of weeks ago, and it's at around 950,000 now. So, like a huge amount of growth, and kind of connecting to the time where we did decide to pull the trigger in 2020, I guess, pay that initial deposit. When I was having that conversation with Boz, it was very much based around like, the uncertainty of COVID. How long is this going to be here for? Is this the right time? But I guess to your point that you mentioned earlier, like the best time to buy was 30 years ago, and Boz kind of took me through all of the events that had happened globally and then, you know, nationally across Australia. And you look at all of those, I guess, events in isolation, you know, global financial crises and all that kind of stuff. And you go, would you still invest? And you kind of look back and go, oh, geez, with those hurdles in front, like you'd be a little bit more cautious. But I guess he just explained to me that COVID was likely to be just another one of those things. And I think OpenCorp's advice to clients through that period was really powerful. Kind of jumping on, and you were almost kind of sharing exactly what the government was going to do in terms of their plan and how they were going to manage the economy. And as that started to happen, it just built my confidence, and I'm like, all right, let's pull the trigger and let's make it happen.
So the concept of going back and having a look at what we were doing with clients and allowing them to get into the property market, we felt a huge responsibility. Was it the right choice during COVID to be investing? So we went back and analysed everything from reintroduction of negative gearing, the removal and reintroduction, recession in the early 90s, all the way through, you know, the Asian financial crisis, the GFC, leading up to, you know, the Twin Towers, all those major events. What were the impact to those, to the economy, to the Australian property market? What occurred during those periods of time? What happened after those? Looking up to APRA and, you know, the Royal Commission into superannuation, the financial institutions, and it took us about 2 months till we went, this is going to go absolutely mental after, you know, when the world comes back. Anyone who buys now is going to get huge growth in specific areas and specific cities. So hence the reason why we chose Pollara, and we analysed a couple of different growth corridors in a couple of different cities. And the clients who invested with us, and there was, you know, hundreds and hundreds of clients that invested during that period, made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in the next 18 months after it, which you were one of, which obviously spearheaded your investment journey. How did that affect you and your family?
Yeah, well, I guess it was amazing to see, and like I guess the growth, like when you come on as a client, you get kind of forecast projections of where you expect to be, and the fact that we were a couple of years ahead of schedule after year one, we were like, oh wow, this is pretty powerful. We've obviously done the right thing here. So we basically needed to wait until a point where that equity was then available for us to be able to leverage and try and get into more property, and that's what we did. So. Yeah, once that valuation came through, I think it was 2.5 years after. I think it was valued at around 830 at that point in time.
So we could draw that equity out.
Yep.
And go again. Where did you go then?
Then we took that out plus a little bit of our own savings, and we bought in Perth. Yep. So that was probably committed to those purchases about 2 years ago. Kind of, probably in terms of timing. 18 months, we've essentially kind of held those properties now.
So Perth was a tough market because there was a real supply and builder shortage during Perth. Talk me through that, because that was tough for yourself, I think, and clients.
Well, I was actually pretty fortunate because there was certainly some time delays in terms of construction in that space, but
you missed that.
I missed that window. So
that real time delay. Yeah, Perth got hit pretty hard with lack of supply and lack of builders. But it's coming to the back end of that now, which is thankful. Yep. So saying that, clients who have been able to hold those properties have made hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's a trade-off, isn't it? So when there's limit on supply, there's obviously a pressure on price growth. So while there's a short-term and a hard cash flow issue, the growth that comes at the back end of that's huge. Perth, I know, was challenging for multiple reasons, mainly the time delays due to lack of supply, but there was good upside at the back end of it. How did that go?
Yeah, look, there were certainly some challenges there, and you did feel a little bit of the pinch on cash flow. But the result has been we've held those properties now for 18 months, and we've probably seen a 250K uplift for both of those properties combined. So as long as we were able to, absorb that, and we had the support of our OpenCorp guiding us through that period, we've certainly come out a long way in front.
What was your rental like at the end?
The best rental yields that we've got. So,
what were your forecasts to start with? Do you remember?
I think I can talk suburb specific, but I think we're at a 600 price point at one and 650 price point on another. They are renting now for 670 and 750.
Wow.
So yeah, well in front.
Yeah.
So can I change lanes a little bit? And I often refer to myself as OpenCorp Client 1.0, and Cam talks about it. My dad took me by the scruff of the neck. I was 20, said basically all the tools and things that we talk about were lessons I learned at 20, and I was guided into buying my first property and second and third and fourth and so forth. So I was lucky. I had a family who understood investing, specifically understood property investing. Did your family come from that background? Was that something that was simple for them to understand? And we often talk about something called dream crushes, which is the family barbecue at Christmas time where your uncle says, "You're a dipshit, don't buy a property. I knew someone 40 years ago lost money." What did that look like for you and your family?
I should point out too that while Al says my dad grabbed me in by the scruff of the neck, Al grew up in Scoresby, which is not an affluent suburb. Steve and Anne were not affluent people. They didn't give Al a leg up. He wasn't silver spoon. He was told, go and buy this property, go and save up and put some money into it. And the first property he purchased, he put the deposit in, and the growth from that property he purchased every other one. So he was told what to do, but he wasn't provided the funds to do it.
Look, I call it OpenCorp Client 1.0 because literally it's almost the guidance our clients get, but a bit more direct.
Yeah,
Go and do that now, put your money here, do it today, where we guide clients and they make the
Nicely,
decision.
they make the decision.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to, I was told. But anyway, I'm not arguing because it worked out well for me, but the point being, it's a lot of the lessons and so forth that we help clients with is I was given those.
Yep.
My family had the background. So were you fortunate that your family understood investing, or were you naysayer type family where it's like we're dream crushers and what are you doing?
Look, probably somewhere in the middle, to be fair. I didn't have any kind of investment knowledge being passed on to me. I think, like, we never wanted for anything as kids. We had really great family support, great upbringing, but I guess I was taught the value of money and the importance of saving, but not what to do with that money. So I knew that, I could budget, I could run, be conscious of my expenses, save up a certain amount, but it was generally to go on holiday or upgrade a car. It wasn't anything beyond that. And I guess probably my early intro into business at the time that I did that, we were enrolled in a business coaching group, and it was basically more about understanding the mindset of an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset. Once I started to adopt that, I started looking for places where I could find, that mentorship. And as I mentioned earlier, that's where my 4-year-old, the property investor, kind of came into it for me.
So give us a rundown. So your specific goals that you wanted to achieve, talk me through that, because I think that's what probably sparked you to go, I want this by then.
Yep.
Talk me through what that concept of, what was your rationale for investing,
Yep.
and how did you put set timeframes and amounts around that?
Yeah, look, I think that's what helped me overcome the naysayers, because it wasn't just my family, it was my friends. And it's like, oh, you're going to, deploy your money in this property investment group. How do you know you even own it? That block of land could be anywhere. Tenants are going to trash the house, like all that kind of common stuff that
You'll be
get.
fixing toilets. I always got that one. You'll be fixing toilets the rest of your life.
Well, the biggest concern was, I was buying interstate, so how was I going to get there to fix the toilet? We were really clear on our goals when we first sat down with OpenCorp. So I guess I go through that now with clients, trying to get them to see the big picture, and some people aren't that clear on it and might need a little bit of prompting and a little bit of help. For us, we were super
figure,
clear.
No. So what were the reasons you wanted to invest?
So for us, we basically set a goal time frame of 10 to 12 years.
Yeah.
Essentially what we were hoping to achieve is a passive income that would be nearing replacing one of our current wages, or wages at that time. And ultimately the plan was to acquire a certain number of assets, sell down a couple of those, to buy the dream principal place of residence.
Yeah, perfect.
So now that you're at OpenCorp, other side of the fence, and I sort of know the answer to this, but I'll ask it. We meet with clients and we say, what's your objective? What overarchingly is their objective when you first meet with them?
Look, passive income can be a good one. Some people,
it's very general though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like the answers.
Yeah. Look, it's passive income of 100K is the go-to. I've had some people sit down and go, passive income 300K, looking at a 5 to 10 year time frame to achieve it. You kind of sit there going,
Unless you're earning 1.2 million now.
What I've
Which we've got some clients who do. We've got
Yeah.
clients from JP Morgan who earn that sort of money, and we've been able to achieve that. But yes, you need to.
and over the years of understanding it, I asked that question like, what was their goals? What's your objectives? And it's regularly, I don't know, and give us a hand, and the hand would be, well, do you want to replace your income? Sure, replace my income with passive. But we go and meet with them 2 years later regularly, and it's like, what are your goals? And then it becomes the one you just said, like, I want 300 grand per 6 months on 6 overseas trips per month, and they've gone. The vision's starting to. I can see it can happen now.
Look, well, for us, our vision hasn't changed too much in terms of maybe an extra bedroom onto the dream home. Like that's starting to become a bit more material now. I know exactly what we're trying to achieve.
You got the floor plan drawn out.
Pretty much. We're probably still 5 to 6 years away from being able to achieve that, but that's only because we're prepared to play the waiting game. Yeah. I think you mentioned earlier about like taking that stepping stone approach and compromising and getting something that's not quite what we want. I just think you're going to lose too much money in that process before that dream becomes a reality. So we're happy to take the longer road and then still end up with a couple of investment properties, on the backside of it.
So let's be really clear on your exit strategy. So you've got a current portfolio which you're building.
Yep.
And the end goal is to not only get your dream home, but it's to be able to provide enough asset with enough passive income that's going to support a lifestyle. Working for me, mate, in 15 years, it's because you love it and have to. So I want to. What's the exit for you?
Well, at the moment, so we've got 3 investment properties currently going through the process of setting one up through self-managed super. At the moment, we've got enough equity there to be able to do a 5th, but with Harry at home, 9-month-old Christy's on maternity leave. When she goes back to work next year,
lazy. Yeah. I'm joking. Sorry, Christy. I'm so sorry. I've got 4 kids. That's a really bad.
But when she's back at work next year, and probably towards the back end of the work after I've been here for a period of time, we'll be in a position where we can add a 5th asset to that. Yeah. For me, it's then just continuing to hold for the next 5 to 6 years. If we can acquire another one during that time, that'd be amazing. But by that time, the assets that we bought early on have going to see considerable growth, and then we've got options to be able to look at selling down to basically take the proceeds of those sales and then look at that dream.
It took me a long time to realise that the best way to maximise your growth is to let the compound growth happen. So buy as much property as you can in a period of time. Let's call it 10 years. And so is that enough if in 20 years that doubles and doubles again, or doubles 3 times? What's it worth? That's the real power of investing in property. If you're just continually borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, it's when you can put the peg in the sand and go, let's let this compound growth take effect.
Yep.
You'll see the massive results, and it sounds like that's what you're starting to recognise.
I think that's what the kind of like, I guess, you're almost in two minds when you're building a portfolio, is because you understand the power of the longer you hold it, the more you're going to benefit. But then you've got this goal of trying to get into your dream home at the same time. Yeah. But that involves giving up 2 of the assets that you've worked so hard for. Yeah. So you're kind of stuck. You're stuck, and you're like, do I really want to do that? Do I really want to let those go?
So Matt appreciates that you go through a serious amount of education to build up a serious business, which is nothing to be sniffed at. That's hard. I know, going through business and building that up. To then fall back and build a property portfolio, you've gone through huge momentum in your life, those pinnacles, and then to reinvent yourself multiple times, and then your current career. And I love having you on board here now, like watching you put the same passion into the people you're helping out. It's amazing. When it comes to new investors that you're dealing with, what are your tips for new investors considering getting to the market, fearful of it, unsure? What are the sort of things that you go through for first-time investors eager to get into the market?
Different for clients that I'm having a conversation with, but for the general public and my family and friends, it's don't wait. Like, that's the biggest thing that holds people back. It's either they don't have the right mindset, or it's fear of the unknown. And for me, it's like, if you don't know, go and find somebody who does. And that's where a company like OpenCorp can provide that really, valuable advice.
Yeah, this is what I talked to Felicity about early days, because she was really fearful about investing. And I said, and I came from a really poor background, as you know. It was more fearful for me if we didn't invest than it was investing. So if we don't invest, we're going to be poor anyway. And what's it matter?
Well,
What's the risk matter? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, the amount of times I've had friends and family just say, "Oh, look, I can see what you're doing, and I can see you're going well, but I just want to do a little bit more research." What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, what are people going to go and do? Like,
What are they researching? Grabbing the paper and seeing what the median house price is?
yeah, exactly. Like they'll jump on realestate.com, search their local suburb, have a look at a couple of properties, and go, "Oh, no, it's all too hard. Nah, that's me researched out." So, yeah, I think that was one of the really big things, I guess. Once I did have that initial kind of first appointment with OpenCorp, was just seeing the level of detail and data that was provided. It just gave me so much confidence. I'm like, that's not something I can do myself. Even though I was so passionate about it and I love doing the research, I was like, here's a company that's got that expertise. I felt really comfortable making a commitment at that point.
And is that a bit of time poor? You're time poor, obviously, other job, and
Yep.
don't know what direction to start heading in, to spend your spare time looking for something versus we do it, we know it, we're looking for it. Is that part of it?
Exactly. Like I've used this in my client testimonial once previously, but like, we had a business coach. I've got a background in endurance sports. I had a triathlon coach and I had a running coach. And the reason I employed those people was to learn from their mistakes, streamline it, experts who had been there and done that. So essentially what I wanted to try and achieve in the property space was to partner with somebody with that exact same skill set or expertise.
It's funny, isn't it? Ellen and I were on a podcast recently with there's a guy called Danny Kennedy, personal trainer, like a fitness coach, some motivator. And he said, "You guys are like personal trainers for investing." I went, "I never looked at it that way, but yeah, that's not a bad way to put it."
Yeah, 100%.
Matt, great to have you. Great to have you at OpenCorp.
Thanks for
Great
sharing.
to hear your story.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Fantastic.
It's a great story.